Hello, friends. Welcome back to Get Happy, Be Fit. Today, I am going to start out by reading an email that I got from a listener. Hi, Natalie. I recently found your podcast on Spotify and have found it inspiring. Listening to your story feels too familiar to me. I've struggled with body image, weight, yo-yo dieting, and all the like for years. I grew up in a similar time as you where underweight was the style and that was never me. I was always described as stocky and muscular, which hurt when everyone around me was thin and beautiful. Same, girl. Same. I hid in oversized clothes and did everything I could to blend into the walls. I remember sitting on the bench at my middle school basketball game and some teammates talking about how thin their thighs were because they could fit their hands around them while touching pinky to pinky and thumb to thumb and still had extra room. I put my hands around my thigh and squeezed as hard as I could to get my fingers to touch. They didn't even come close. To this day, I look at my thighs and all I can think is huge. I used to feel like any bit of flab or jiggle meant I was chubby and that I had to keep working to get impossibly thin. I practice yoga and walk every day. Hiking is one of my favorite hobbies. I never counted these toward my exercise time because I felt like it wasn't real exercise since I wasn't gasping for breath and red in the face. I'd still do HIIT, strength training, and cardio, and lawn work on top of it all and considered myself lightly active, even if I had been moving for 4 or more hours that day. I was sore, tired, hungry, and cranky all the time. Been there. I never felt like it was enough, and if my free time wasn't dedicated to exercise, I would never reach my goals. Listening to your podcast has caused me to rethink the way I view fitness and health. When I get discouraged, I focus on the progress I've made and revel in my healthy choices to get there. I practice the gratitude journal you suggested and find it a great addition to my daily yoga and meditation. I even started revisiting my other hobbies that I put on hold in favor of working out more, like puzzles, video games, and reading. I may not be losing weight as fast as I originally thought I had to, but I'm also not miserable. I still have rough days, but I'm working hard on being my own best friend. Thank you for sharing your stories and thoughts and bringing reality back to fitness. Thank you again, Autumn, for sending this email. I seriously cannot thank you enough and tell you how much this means to me. This is why I started this podcast, and it makes me so happy to hear about people beginning to love themselves, heal, and enjoy their lives. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this email is going to lead me into what we are talking about today, which is how our view of ourselves and how we talk about ourselves influences others and how they feel about themselves. I identified so strongly with what Autumn said about the girls on the bench at the basketball game. One of my best friends constantly talked about how much she loved her long, skinny legs, which was awesome. I'm happy she had long, skinny legs. Great. But this is the same best friend who at one point told me that I would look a lot skinnier if my butt wasn't so big. I wasn't very good at picking best friends, kind of like I wasn't very good at picking boyfriends, but I digress. Something else that was extremely damaging to me was watching the girls in my class pinch their stomachs to show how fat they were. Literally all that was in between their fingers was skin, yet they would stand in front of chubby little me talking about how they were gross and needed to lose weight. All of them were nice to me. None of them insulted me, but this affected me. And I think sometimes we think it's okay to put ourselves down because it's us, and we're not saying something bad about someone else, so it shouldn't make someone else feel bad. But we all know that our tendency is to compare ourselves to others. So even if you compliment someone, if you then put yourself down, there is a good chance that the compliment you paid that other person will be negated or not believed because of the insult you just paid yourself. A good example of this was when I was growing up. My mom, who I thought was the most beautiful woman in the world, would talk about how she needed to lose weight. And she actually wore a smaller pant size than me. And when I would bring that up, she would say that I was built so much cuter than her and was so much prettier than her, which I know she truly believed and believes till this day, but all I could see was this beautiful woman who I adored judging herself, which in turn, no matter what wonderful things she said about me, caused me to judge myself in the same way. Another example of this was during my second competition prep season. After I had severely screwed up my metabolism for my first prep, like I've talked about before, this prep was not going well. I wasn't feeling great about myself because I went from being the smallest I had ever been and not struggling at all to get there to gaining about 20 pounds and killing myself trying to get it off for this prep. My view of myself had been severely skewed after being that lean, and even though I was in great shape, I felt like I didn't look good enough to post pictures of myself on Instagram. I felt like I had built up an Instagram following based on my weight loss and competition progress, and I was somewhat humiliated of the shape I was in, even though I was still 40 pounds lighter than I was at my heaviest, and initially felt amazing when I reached that weight the first time. I was in Scotland with Todd and some friends, and Todd was saying we should take some pictures while we were there because it was gorgeous. So he was trying to get some pictures of me, but I felt like I looked terrible in them. I felt like I looked so unfit and I felt so defeated. This in turn affected my very good friend who was there with me, who had also reached an amazing weight loss goal, but like so many of us, gained some of it back. I thought she looked great. And I never would have thought that me feeling bad about myself would have affected her, but it did. I was so consumed with this is how I'm supposed to look because that's who I've made myself out to be, that I didn't think about the fact that even though I thought my friend was more than good enough the way she was, like literally never looked at her and thought she was anything other than gorgeous and just adorable, but she was also struggling with the same feelings of defeat from gaining some weight back over time. So my actions and insecurity made someone I love feel worse about themselves. And I never, ever, ever would have wanted that. I felt like since I wasn't at my goal weight, it was okay to be openly dissatisfied about the way I looked. And of course, I was allowed to feel that way about myself. Of course, we're all allowed to want to lose weight and to look better. But just because it's our right to feel that way doesn't mean we should voice it. And in fact, voicing it could be destructive for someone else. At the end of the day, our reactions and responses to things are our responsibility. And when I notice things triggering me now, I don't get mad at the person who triggered me or said the thing that triggered me. I use it as a gauge of what I should work on, because expecting everyone to instinctually know what is going to trigger you and not do those things is ridiculous and unrealistic. But I never, ever, ever want to be the person who causes someone to struggle with feeling good about themselves. Sometimes that cannot be helped. Like the time I was in the locker room and simply existing seemed to make that beautiful girl feel insecure or less than. I was that girl once, and seeing a thin girl would instantly make me feel bad, no matter what she did or said. But if I can help it, I never want to be the fuel on the fire of someone's insecurity by putting myself down when they very well could be wishing they had what I had. If none of us put ourselves down, I feel like so much would change for the next generation and their view of themselves. If all of us were open about our struggles in a vulnerable way without verbally assaulting ourselves, and if we encouraged and celebrated one another and ourselves, we would be fostering a generation of validated, loving humans who could celebrate and support other people's beauty and their own. Because none of us are less than anyone else. Our differences are beautiful and should be celebrated. So the next time you feel the need to put yourself down, even if it's to try to make someone else feel better, take a second and shift your thinking. If you want someone to feel good about themselves, do it by lifting them up, not tearing yourself down. All right, that's all for today.